Hello, welcome to my channel. In this video I will show you my remaining books. They won't have any common theme, just books which I still want to color and which I forgot to include in the previous parts. Let's start from Myth and Magic by Craft, and that's one of my biggest regrets, that in the previous year I didn't manage to color anything in this beautiful book. I still like it a lot. I think that it's quite unique. Even if it's not the easiest book, still it has a very nice pictures. So far I have here this Beauty and the Beast. Here I color with polychromasis and Prismacolors, but I think that with care you can also use watercolors. Maybe this Winter Rose is so far my favorite finished picture here. I tried not to copy original art by Craft. I just look at the brief description of the book for which this illustration was created as a cover, and I really tried hard trying to show the winter atmosphere here. The biggest challenge here was to show this transformation from the trees into the collar and hair, branches into hair of this winter girl. But I think that in the end I managed okay. I always love this color combo of light blue, violet blue with a little bit of magenta colors. For me they always work quite well, and especially when you also have couple of warm color elements and couple of bright objects. In the end everything always look okay and quite well balanced. So I'm quite proud how I managed to finish this one. Here is my mermaid. I did it a couple of years ago for the mermaid, and you know that usually I prefer to start working from the background. I was very interested to color all those various creatures, seaweeds in various color palettes, combining even unusual colors like I did here on the corals or on this thing. But then I realized that actually many of the colors which I used for the seaweeds I also intended to use for the mermaid, so I was quite afraid that she would be lost. But then I did a very dark night sky background and very dark colors of the water. So, and when I added a lot of white pen to outline her scales, to add highlights and shining on the scales along her tail, I think that she looks quite okay. Especially this lavender and lilac colors, they also help. I actually do love how lilac and lavender look together with gold. I definitely need to use this color combo much more frequently. And she also holds a lot of stars, and I did them with shiny, maybe paints, maybe pens, I don't remember, but they are really shiny, and I think that they added a nice final touch to the whole page. So in the middle of this coloring I was sure that I will ruin it, but in the end I really love the final look of the page. And that was my first picture, which I did immediately after I purchased polychromos pencils. When I started to color polychromos pencils, they weren't available in our local shops. Just maybe a couple of years later they appeared in our art stores, and I was able to purchase individually several green colors because I am always in need of natural greens. And when I purchased them, I used them here for the background. For the angel I used Prismacolors. I think that they're salmon pink, goldenrod, lavender, dahlia purple, you can recognize everywhere. So it's a mix of two blends. When I did this page, I didn't have a nice selection of acrylic markers, so I never bothered with masking black lines. Maybe now I would prefer to cover all those excessive black lines, but even if it's my very old work. I still like it. I do love how I did this griffon in red and gold, and I used similar color to support this intense dark red on the roses. So I think that for the first page in such complicated book it was okay. But after this one I did break for a couple of years. Then I colored these three works, and unfortunately for the whole 222 it was totally abandoned. I hope that in the new year I will be able to color more, because I absolutely love many pictures here. The same things goes to Briar. I consider this book as one of the gemstones of my collection. It's relatively rare, but it has kind of pictures which I totally love. All those beautiful medieval knights and ladies, and a very good paper, good for watercolor and for pencils. When I got the book, I did one page to test paper, and it was this beautiful Christmas wreath and Christmas elf. I used watercolors and I used Prismacolor pencils. Then again, I hadn't touched it apart from a couple of tiny colorings like this one. Or this one, where I practiced how to do gemstones and gold with polychromos pencils. And finally, my other big work here, it's this mermaid. Well, of course, I was inspired by the original art. It's somewhere in the book here. And I guess that here artists use either digital things or maybe paints, but with pencils it was extremely difficult to show all this falling water. Of course, I also used a white paint, but the rest, the dreamy sky, all those waterfalls and rivers above the stones here, everything I did with pencils. So in the end I was quite proud of myself. Well, I hope that somewhere in January or February I at least will be able to do this one. I wanted to do it in December, but then of course I wasn't able to find time. I definitely can recommend this one because it has a lot of amazing pictures, and as I said, paper is also very thick and perfect for all media. Next I have this book by Anne Stokes. I also have somewhere her postcards, but I wasn't able to find them. So let me show you again my one and only work here. It's mixed media work because for the wolf and for the girl I used I think polychromos together with Prismacolors to get more realistic effect on the fur, and of course a white paint. But for the mountains behind I tried to use acrylic paints because for me the background had excessive amount of black lines. So even if I am not very happy with the background, I worked with pencils on top of acrylics, so texture it has different shyness in several places. Some areas are shiny, some have more matte finish, but anyway, at least now all those excessive lines on the background, they didn't distract attention from the main heroes. And I think that the girl with her red dress, she looks quite nice together with her friend Wolf. Another one of my very old books is this Princess Bride. Here I have tiny flower composition as a title page. I think that I even used here some of the budget pencils and Derwent color salts to test paper. Paper actually is good because it's the same publisher as Beauty of Horror, but line art, well, it's not exactly 100% for my taste, because even if it has some very nice portraits. Here actually a lot of elements I managed to mask with opaque paint. It has a lot of such patterns or even uglier patterns like this one. So with opaque paints I managed to do more acceptable level of the background, and here I practiced how to do skin and how to do white line and short, but with visible shading on it, using a little bit of gray and a little bit of blue. Another portrait which I totally failed because I started to do it only with watercolors and I didn't know actually how to finish this metal knife, and to show that here we have the flat paper and inside of it the knife goes, so I had to show shadow somehow. Also I did a mess with watercolor shading on the face, so I abandoned it. It was, I think, more than 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and so far I hadn't returned to this picture. And finally I have this final portrait which is a little bit more acceptable. Again, a lot of watercolors for the flowers, for the frame, for the curtain and a castle background. Only for their clothes and faces I used Prismacolor pencils. Here I have grayscale book Mysterious Faces by Kevin Theo Art, and I have one finished page. This beautiful Native American girl with her friend raccoon. I love everything connected to Native American Sam, especially when I can color their beautiful clothes, head pieces and jewelry, and I love raccoons, so my choice was obvious. Here we have quite delicate style of grayscale, so it was quite easy to color her skin. I even managed to use my more requiring pencils like polycolors. For the background I managed to use color salts, but still it's paper by Amazon, so the best choice for me was to use polychromases, and that's exactly what I used for the rest of the page. I think that most of all here I do love this color combo of this cobalt turquoise, a very intense and deep color, together with shades of ochre, red brown colors. I think that everything worked nicely here. And of course a lot of paint for the fluffy feathers and for the fur of raccoon. And finally I will show you my finished pictures in Mythographic books to which I want to dedicate my whole January, because I already collected many books, but unfortunately I hadn't colored a lot in many of them. Surprisingly, almost all my finished pictures are gathered in Paradise, even if the original line art I much more prefer in the books by Bank. But somehow, so far, it's easier to color for me in the books by Fabiana Attanasio. So here we have Paradise, where I decided for myself that mostly I will color with paints, with watercolor for the background, and then on the details I will work with pencils. That's exactly what I did here. Background, it's watercolor, and it also helped me to mask many masked elements which I didn't like. Some of them I decided to save for the page, like this tiny cup, but the rest I masked using quite dark watercolor paint. And of course you know that I love all violet, lavender, lilac colors, so my color choice for this beautiful wisteria was obvious. I was quite interested how to color her face. I hope that it's visible that it has slightly lighter bark, and in such a way her face it's not lost against the rest of the tree. Next I have this beautiful sunflower page which I did this spring. You know that quite often sunflower is considered the symbol of Ukraine, so I was quite happy to color it in March or April probably. And I think that yellow, especially such orange yellow shades, always looks quite nice together with deep blue colors. So I did this cosmic background. First I tried to work in a wet in wet technique, but unfortunately on this paper I wasn't able to do beautiful stains when you pre-wetten your page first with water and then drop paint. No, paper absorbed water very quickly. So in the end I simply applied several layers, and glazing technique worked actually quite well. I applied light blue, then I intensified and darkened color with more violet shade, then I added magenta and even some metal shining to represent stars. So I think that in the end everything worked exactly like I imagined it. Next one was a crazy experiment with colors. I had this mint color among my paints, and I was quite anxious to finally use it somewhere because I do love the shade of green, but so far I never was able to use such a mint green anywhere. And in the end somehow I decided that I can use it here for the background. Again, paint was opaque, so I masked the majority of hidden objects, and well, then I did those green Japanese birds, uguisu. Once I already colored them in Kanoko Yagusa books, and I was totally mesmerized by their unique olive green feathers, so I decided to repeat such experience here. Next one, I have my fantasy flamingo. Actually, flamingo are not very fantasy, they are in more realistic colors, but at least on the leaves I decided to use not only greens, but also a lot of blue colors. Again, background I did with watercolor, and then on the leaves and on flamingos I worked with pencils, and I think that I used budget pencils, mostly like Star Joy or Sioux colors. I love how they behave on this paper, no problems at all. Here I have my magical portal and my magical turtle. Well, from the very beginning I knew that I want to use pink for the tree and for the flowers, and the most challenging part was to decide how to color turtle, especially her back, in order not to be lost against the other elements. Well, again, a lot of work to mask hidden objects, but in the end I think that everything worked quite well. I am actually quite proud of all my works in this book, and this unicorn I even included in my list of favorite finished pictures for the year. From the beginning I wanted to start coloring daffodils. I usually have huge problems with daffodils. In Kanoko Yagusa, in Maria Trolle, I always try to color them, and they usually look a little bit flat. Here it was another attempt, and then I started to think which colors can be compatible with this yellow for the crystals, for the gemstones. I selected this apple green together with chartreuse, mostly because I already previously did blue crystals, amethyst crystals, and I wanted to practice this color palette. Unicorn, I already had some experience how to color them when you want to show that they are actually white, but you still need to show some shading. And all light blue, lavender, gray lavender colors, they are very helpful for such cases. And I was very lucky that in my set of Arteza I found this very helpful bluish green colors for the background. I think that they matched the rest of the colors perfectly well. First, I didn't know what we have here, those vertical lines, and what to do with them. But in the end, I did them like transformation from the main to the falling water, and I think that now it looks more logical. Next, this one I did only because I wanted to do this yellow background and blue and lavender flowers. Everything else was just for relax. I didn't accept I didn't think anything particular complicated for this page. I just wanted to color to relax, so it's far from perfect, especially because it has excessive amount of those strange lines, which I totally dislike, just like I dislike hidden objects. Well, I called it the waltz of flowers, and mostly the biggest fun I had here when I colored this old bronze gramophone. That's probably my least favorite picture in the book. Next, I have this Venice in a lotus pond. Again, nothing special, a lot of my traditional pink, lavender, blue, violet colors, and mostly the background I did with watercolor. Pencils were Star Joy probably, and the central part I think that I did with a mix of Prismacolors, because I definitely can recognize clay rose, all those cream colors, so it's a mix of brands, but the final look I think it's okay. One of the most unusual pictures I ever done, because usually I don't do such wine red background for my pictures. Usually I go for more traditional green, blue colors, but here again I wanted to use somewhere my Coloriage watercolor. I used it with minimal amount of water, so here it's almost opaque, even if it's watercolor. But it also masked some of the hidden objects, and again we have those strange lines, but I decided to turn them into, like they are showing that merry-go-round it's actually turning. So that's how I can explain them to myself. For the merry-go-round I used polychromasis, I believe. Anyway, all these pictures, they are on my YouTube channel. I will leave you in the end the link to the Mythographic playlist. And another book where I at least have some finished projects in Mythographic, it's Frozen Fantasies. Actually, it was my first book which I purchased from the series, and when I realized that I do love their paper. My first work was this reindeer. When I started it, I already saw some nice pictures by other colorists with dark blue, dark green background, so I decided to try something new, and I used those pastel colors. It's paint, but it looks quite a little bit of gray rose, a little bit of light mocha colors. Well, so I did it first to mask hidden objects. Then I decided that I need to create good contrast with blue colors, lighter and more intense, to intensify winter atmosphere. And the biggest fun I had coloring fur and golden bells on the reindeer. Next I have those I don't know, frozen butterflies. Anyway, I did it in the middle of the very hot summer, so it was quite pleasant and refreshing. I still tried to maintain atmosphere of the frozen, so my crystals, they are blue like pieces of ice. And the most challenging part was what to do with the snowflakes. I covered my whole background with green paint, again because of the hidden objects, and then I had to outline all those beautiful and intricate snowflake designs with white Posca to recreate them, because they were hidden behind the green paint. But in the end, I think that it's a good mix of tropical vibe and winter vibe on one picture. And finally, I have my amethyst and dragon here. Again, colored with budget pencils. Here I quickly masked all hidden objects with black acrylic paint. It's always winning. Black background, very helpful and very complementary to all colors you select for the page. That's where I practiced how to make amethysts, how to color interesting scales. First I was thinking just about those green, cobalt green colors with a little bit of yellowish green, but in the end I also added a little bit of lavender lilac shining on some of the areas, and I think that it added some interesting touch, like I managed to unite amethysts and similar shining on the scales of the dragon. Well, now I am more eager and more inspired to start coloring in all my mythographic books. As I said in the end of the video, I will leave you a link to my playlist for the mythographic series, and I hope that you will color together with me in these beautiful books, because I want all their new books in the series, but I can't justify myself to purchase more because I have many untouched books and I need to finally start coloring in all of them, because I definitely consider this series as one of the best on the market. Well, thank you, and I will see you very soon.